Hello and welcome to Writer's Topics. Today's topic, we'll be discussing the culture shock that some face when moving to the United States from a foreign country. No matter where the person comes from, it's easy to say that the U.S. is very different in many ways. To tell us just how different it really is, here is Sam Moko, who moved to the United States during his freshman year of high school from Kenya. Thank you for joining us today, Sam.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having the show.
So could you tell me a little bit about where you're from and describe what your hometown is like?
I'm from Nairobi, Kenya. Well, I lived in Buruburu, then I moved to South Bay, and I stayed there for like 9 years, and then I came to America. Yeah.
Oh wow, 9 years. So how would you describe your hometown? Because my vision of Kenya is all sand and stuff, like huts, but
well,
how would you just describe it like?
I blame that image on poorly researched Hollywood movies because they depict most of Africa as huts and tribalism. And there is that part of Africa, but we are actually more, I think, if I can speak in terms of Kenya, we're in the industrial revolution kind of going on right now. But I describe Kenya as, or rather Nairobi as a watered down version of London, because there's so many different tribes, so many different cultures there, and there's so many people from all over the world. Like you can have, there's Spanish people there, there's people from India as well. It's like a melting point.
Okay, yeah. So would you say Kenya looks kind of like the image on this screen, with like it's all city-like with these buildings and stuff?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that was taken in like 2008 or something. But I remember the flat I used to live at. If I went to the roofs, I could actually see those buildings, and it's quite
really?
cool. I feel like I'm home looking at this.
Oh, that's great. So when was the last time you were in Kenya?
I haven't been since I left actually. So I haven't been to Kenya since freshman year of high school.
Wow.
So it's been quite
so
a
I
while.
bet it's changed a lot.
My aunt went back a couple of times, and every single time she comes back, she shows me photos because she travels quite a lot. And some of the highways have been redone because there's a lot of like Chinese invested in business in Kenya and stuff, and they're redoing their infrastructure, so it looks quite different. I'm quite afraid to go back home because I think it's not going to be the same.
You won't recognize it.
Yeah, I won't recognize it at all.
So when coming to America, was it what you expected?
My image of America was loosely based on the ABC show Seventh Heaven. So, but as soon as I got here, I realized it was a lot more diverse. And I remember we arrived at the airport, and I stepped out of the airport, and I was just like, wow, I'm in America, because it's like I never thought I'd come to America, maybe for visiting, but I never thought I'd live here. So it's quite different.
I know this was many years ago, but do you remember your first experience of culture shock?
Well, I remember like my first day at school. It was like my homeroom class was English, and the week before that I was in Highway Secondary School taking physics and stuff like that, and taking Kiswahili classes, which is Swahili is a language we speak in Kenya. So I was so accustomed to life and school in Kenya that my English teacher at my high school asked me a question, and I raised my hand because they were studying Romeo and Juliet, and I actually knew the answer. So I was like, oh, pick me, and she picks me because it was my first week, so it was like a simulation and everything. And I remember just blurting out sentence after sentence after sentence of the answer. And after each sentence, like more and more kids started looking at me, and it was halfway through my answer that I realized I was speaking in Swahili throughout the whole time. So like they started laughing, but it was quite cool because like everybody kind of sort of understood, and I gathered my thoughts again and then answered in English.
All right. So what was the most hardest part of like just dropping everything in Kenya and just making your way to America?
Hardest part was there's a lot of friends that like I grew up with in South B and South C in Kenya, and just saying bye to them and realizing I think the week before I left is when I realized, well, I might not see them ever again. So it's and I mean, potentially it was just like in my head I was just like, okay, I'm gonna go to America. I've never been there, so it's like adventure. I always love adventure, so I was sat there like, new adventure, but there was a bittersweet. Like I have relatives I haven't seen in 8 years, so that takes a toll. And half of my family is in America, and the other half is in Kenya. So it's like, how do you balance that?
That's true. So would you say this is like a long vacation? Are you going to go back to Kenya after graduating writer?
I'd love to go back to Kenya after I graduate and maybe film a couple of short films and a couple of documentaries, because a lot of friends that I went to primary school with or secondary school with are actually they study media in Kenya, and they're actually photographers, and they're documenting stories in Kenya. So I'd like to tell that, because I feel like there's a lot of stories in Kenya that have to be told.
Okay, so where does your British accent come from? Because like you say you spoke Swahili and French, maybe, I think I heard.
Well, they taught us you can choose French, or you can choose whatever language. So some schools offer Spanish and French, or just French. But everybody in Kenya is taught English and Swahili from a young age. And I speak the way I speak because we were colonized by the British because of our tea exports. Well, obviously many other reasons, but that's probably one of the main reasons.
So the British accent just stuck on you.
Yeah, they taught us British English, and I grew up at least on a lot of like UK shows and Australian shows as well. So the culture is quite similar to London.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So do you feel that this experience has changed you in any way? Do you feel like you've grown?
Coming to America, yeah, I mean, I feel like there's a lot more opportunities for young adults in America compared to Kenya. Not saying that there aren't any opportunities in Kenya, but the opportunities in America are a lot more diverse. And I've been able to grow due to that. Like the facilities in such a school as this is very hard to come by in Kenya. And you find that even though you find like there's a lot of kids in Kenya that aren't able to go to school, and education it opens so many doors, and a lot of kids aren't able to fulfill their potentials in life because they're not in the right environments all the time. So yeah.
Yeah, you're right. So you've been here, what, 7
I've been
years?
about 7, 8 years. I think I'm going up to 9, I think. I'm not sure. I've been here quite a while. I've been here since, 2006, I think.
Oh, wow, yeah.
It's been a while.
So would you consider yourself more American now than Kenyan?
That's a tough question too. I mean, I don't even know. I can't. Well, I'm born and bred Kenya. I would never disown that.
Well, okay, so do you continue on with any of your Kenyan traditions now? Like, do you still eat Kenyan food? Do you still celebrate? Are there Kenyan holidays? Like,
I still enjoy my daily dose of Kenyan tea. So
nice.
You usually find me reading a book and sipping on ketepa.
All right. So I know this process was a long time ago, but how was it like to come here, to come to America?
It was such a long process because you obviously have to go through the whole visa, they get approved and everything, and then you have to sit down through grueling interviews where the person you're talking to across is ordered or is mandated to have like a stern face. They can't joke around, and they ask you these serious questions like where are you going to stay, where are you going to work, and most people that aren't able to come to America aren't able to come because they make it all the way to the final interview, and they're not able to come because they don't have someone to host them here. So we were quite lucky that a former childhood friend of my mom, their daughters were here, so we were able to like have a hosting family.
So you said the process to come to America was a bit difficult.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that process is necessary for immigrants, I guess, to come and migrate to America? Do you think that's necessary?
I mean, yeah, I mean, it's certainly suiting because think about it this way: if I'm going to allow you to from the outside come into a new country, they have to make sure background checks are okay, and that's a massive part of it. They have to make sure that you are to some extent the right person to fit in, because I feel like obviously there's a lot of people that come to America and they come throughout the illegal route because they really want to feed their families back home, but it doesn't really work out because it'd be quite wrong if you came to America and maybe you didn't have a hosting family and you ended up in a shelter. So it's from the outside looking in, it seems like a gruesome process, but it works out for the better if they do their job the right way and you come in the right process. You kind of can situate yourself a lot better.
No, I completely agree with you. So what kind of advice would you give to anyone in the world that is thinking about making that huge transition and dropping their things in their home country and making a change and coming to the home of like the free, land of the brave?
If you're gonna migrate to another country, obviously try to reach out to someone that you maybe might know in that country and try to find out how their day-to-day life is over there, so you can kind of like get used to it.
So do research.
Yeah, bit of research. Try to learn the culture. I think learning the culture is quite important because you assimilate a lot better. As well as soon as you get here, try to find communities of maybe your homeland, wherever you're from. So if I'm from I don't know, South Africa, try to find like a small South African-based community. That way you don't, when you feel homesick, you can just go and reminisce about the country.
Yeah, and it makes the transition easier.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much for chatting with us. And that's all we have for Writer Topics this week. I'm Daisy Represenera, and stay tuned for our next topic.